In this video, I am going to share with you a step-by-step pattern of making this cute bird finger puppet. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this project, I am using 4-ply cotton yarn along with a crochet hook of size 3 mm. Now let's begin by making a magic ring. Here I am using orange color thread for making the beak. Into the magic ring, make 5 single crochet stitches. That's 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now close the magic ring. Now make a 1 single crochet stitch over the first single stitch and mark the beginning of the second row. Now continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch. So which means we will have 5 single crochet stitches in the second row as well. So once all the 5 single crochet stitches are done, remove the stitch marker and then into that first stitch make a slip stitch. Now make chain 1 and trim the excess thread by leaving a little long tail end, and we are going to use this tail end to attach this beak to the bird face. The starting tail end is used to tuck into the beak so that we don't have to add additional stuffing here. As it is a very tiny part, it's difficult to put the stuffing and put it in place. Now put this aside and let's start working on the wings. I'm using dark pink color shade for making these wings. Begin with the magic ring and make 6 single crochet stitches into the center. That's 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now pull the tail end and close the magic ring. Now for the second row, make 1 single stitch on the top of the first single stitch. Now put a stitch marker into this stitch to mark the beginning of the second row. Now continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch for the second row as well, which means by the end of the second row you will have 6 single crochet stitches. That's 5 and finally the 6th one. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third round. So for this, make 1 single stitch into the next stitch. Now put the stitch marker into this stitch to mark the beginning of third row. Now into the next stitch, make 1 increase, that is single crochet increase. Make 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. Now repeat this pattern 2 more times. That's 1 single stitch followed by 1 increase. Again 1 single stitch into the next stitch and then 1 increase into the last stitch. So by the end of the third row you will have 9 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the fourth row. Begin with 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back into the same stitch to mark the beginning of fourth row. Now into the next stitch make 1 single stitch. So after 2 single stitches into the next stitch make an increase. Now repeat this pattern of 2 single stitches and increase 2 more times. So here is the increase and then the last time 1 single stitch, second single stitch and then in the last stitch make an increase. By the end of the fourth row you will have 12 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker, make 1 single stitch and let's start making the fifth row. Put the stitch marker back so that you will know where your fifth row has started. Make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And then we are going to repeat making 1 single stitch in each stitch up to row 7. So once you are done with 7th row, in 7th row also you will have 12 single stitches. Put the starting tail end into the wing, remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 8th row. Begin with an invisible decrease. Put the needle through the first 2 loops, front loops, drop a loop and make a single stitch. That's invisible decrease. Then continue to make invisible decreases throughout the row, which means 12 single crochet stitches will be reduced to 6 single crochet stitches by the end of the 8th row. Here it's the 5th decrease and then the last invisible decrease. So once all the 6 stitches are done, remove the stitch marker and make one slip stitch into the next stitch. Chain 1 and then trim the excess thread by leaving a little long tail end. Make 2 such wings for attaching it on either side of the bird. Now put this aside and let's start working on the body of the bird. For making the body, I am using light pink. Begin with a magic ring. Then chain 1 and for the first row make 6 single crochet stitches into the center. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now close the magic ring and let's start making the second row. Make 2 single crochet stitches on the top of the first stitch. That's 1 and into the same stitch make another single stitch. That's 2. Now put a stitch marker on the top of the first stitch where the second row has started. Now make 2 single crochet stitches in each and every stitch throughout the row, which means we are going to make increases in the second row. So by the end of the second row you will have 12 single crochet stitches. That's the 5th one and then the last increase, the 6th one, and this completes your second row. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third row. Make 1 single stitch on the top of the first stitch and then put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of the third row. Now into the next stitch make an increase. So you have 1 single stitch, 1 increase. Now repeat this pattern 5 more times. So 1 single stitch and 1 increase. Repeat this pattern throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So by the end of the third row you will have 18 single crochet stitches. Here I am making the last increase of the third row. So this completes my third row. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the fourth row. Begin with 1 single stitch. Put the stitch marker back in place and then to the next stitch make an increase. Now in the next stitch make 1 single stitch. So 1 stitch, increase and 1 stitch. This is one set. Now repeat this set 5 more times. So 1 single stitch, increase and 1 single stitch. Again 1 single stitch, increase and 1 single stitch. So don't get confused. Here we have 1 single stitch before and after an increase, which makes 2 single stitches side by side. So here is the last 1 single stitch and this completes 4th row with 24 stitches. Now let's start making the 5th row. Make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back in place and continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. Here we are not adding any increases or decreases. So by the end of the 5th row also you will have 24 stitches and repeat this same pattern until row 7. So by the end of the row 7 you will have 24 stitches and this is how the head of the bird looks like. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 8. Make 3 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. So here we are going to add the detailing for tail end to begin. Mark the stitch marker into the first stitch of the 8th row, and after making 3 single stitches into the same stitch, make 1 single stitch in each and every stitch for the next 23 stitches, or until you reach the starting point. So after making the last single crochet stitch for 8th row, you will have 26 single crochet stitches. Now for the 9th row, begin with 1 single stitch, put the stitch marker back in place. Now into the next stitch, make 3 single stitches into the same stitch, and then make 1 single crochet stitch in each of the next 24 stitches. So make 1 single stitch in each and every stitch until you reach the starting point, and then by the end of the 9th row, you will have 28 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the row 10. Make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back in place. Now into the next stitch, make 1 more single stitch, and then on the tip of the next stitch, make 3 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. Now continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch for the next 25 single stitches, and repeat this until you reach the starting point. So by the end of the 10th row, you will have 30 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making 11th row. So here you can clearly identify the front part of the head and the back side of the head. Make 1 single stitch, put the stitch marker back in place, then make 2 more single stitches, that's 2 and then 3. Now into the next stitch, make a single crochet increase, 3 stitches into the same stitch. Now make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch for the next 26 stitches. Just 1 single crochet stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So by the end of the 11th row, you will have 32 single crochet stitches. You can see the shape. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 12th row. Remove the stitch marker, make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back into its place, and then into the next 3 single stitches, make 1 single stitch each. So until now we have made 4 single crochet stitches. Now into the next stitch, carefully observe, make 1 single stitch, and then make chain 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now skip 1 chain from the hook, and from the second chain make 1 single stitch in each stitch. So you will have 5 single stitches over the chain. That's 3, 4 and 5. Now into the same stitch, make 1 more single crochet stitch. The same stitch where the chain 6 has started, into the same stitch make 1 single stitch. So thus forms the tail of the bird. Now continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch for the next 27 single stitches. Just 1 single stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So by the end of the 12th row, you will have 38 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 13. So make 1 single stitch, put the stitch marker back in place. So that's first single stitch. This one is 2, 3, 4 and 5. So once 5 single stitches are done, we have to make 5 single stitches across the back loops of the chain. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 on the last chain. Now make one single crochet stitch above the single crochet stitches over the chain. So this will have again 5. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. So this gives the shape for the tail. Now make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch for the next 28 stitches. Just one single stitch in each and every stitch until you reach the starting point. So once the 13th row is done, you will have 43 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 14th row. Make one single stitch, put the stitch marker back, and then into the next stitch make one single stitch. So we have done 2 single stitches, and then into the next stitch make single crochet increase. Now one single stitch. Now repeat this 4 times, single crochet increase and single crochet for 4 times. So this is the second set, increase and single stitch. Now the third set, increase and single stitch. Then the fourth set, increase and single stitch. So this completes the one half side of the bird. Now for the second half side, reverse the pattern, one single stitch and then increase. Now repeat this one single stitch increase for another 3 more times. So this is first set. Now this is the second set. That's one single stitch and then increase. This the third set, one single stitch and increase. Now the fourth set, one single stitch and then increase. So after all these 4 sets, we will have 25 stitches remaining. Make one single stitch in each and every stitch for all the 25 stitches or until you reach the starting point. So once the 14th row is done, you will have 51 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 15th row. Make one single stitch, put the stitch marker back into its place. Now make 3 more single stitch, which means we will have 4 single stitches. That's 3 and 4. Now into the next chain, make an increase. Now we are going to repeat this pattern. So make 4 single stitches. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then into the next stitch, make an increase. Now into the next 8 stitches, make one single stitch in each stitch. That's 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now into the next stitch, make an increase. Now make 4 single stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 and into the next stitch make an increase. Now we will be left with 27 stitches. Make one single stitch in each and every stitch until you reach the starting point. And this completes your 15th row, and by the end of the 15th row you will have 55 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 16th row. So this part of the tail is where the shape takes this curved texture. Now make one single stitch and put stitch marker back into the place. And for row 16, make one single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So as we are not doing any increases and decreases, the count will remain the same. So 55 stitches will be the count by the end of the 16th row. So once the 16th row is done, let's start making the 17th row. Here is where we have to make the partition between the body and tail. So begin with single stitch and put the stitch marker back in place. Then make 6 more single stitches. That's 3, 4, 5, 6 and then 7. Total 7 stitches. And then you have to skip the next 20 stitches. Just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. So 20 stitches have to be skipped, and you have to make the next single stitch into that stitch which is marked after the 20 stitches. So all these 20 stitches will join later for the tail part. Now carefully insert the needle into the 21st stitch and then make one single stitch. And then you will have 27 stitches more. Make one single stitch in each and every stitch later on until you reach the starting point. So by the end of the 17th row, you will have 35 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker. You have to put some stuffing into the tail and we have to sew them later. And let's start 18 by making an invisible decrease and put the stitch marker back in its place. So this is the beginning of 18th row with a decrease, and then make 3 single stitches. That's 1, 2 and 3. Again make an invisible decrease for the next 2 stitches. Insert the needle into the front loops of next 2 stitches and then make a decrease. And make 3 more single stitches. That's 1, 2 and 3. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row. That is 1 invisible decrease followed by 3 single stitches. Again an invisible decrease followed by 3 single crochet stitches. Likewise until you reach the starting point. So making the last 3 single stitches. That's 1, 2 and 3. So this completes row 18 with 28 single crochet stitches. Now row 19, begin with an invisible decrease and then put the stitch marker back in place. Now continue to make invisible decreases throughout the row. So by the end of the 19th row, you will have 14 single stitches. Just continue to make one invisible decrease in each of the stitches, like you are going to join 2 stitches together. So by the end of the 19th row, you will have 14 stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and for the 20th row, begin with an invisible decrease and then put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of 20th row. Now make 6 single crochet stitches. Just carefully count and make one single stitch in each and every stitch for next 6 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now into the next 2 stitches, join them using an invisible decrease. And then you will be left with 4 stitches. Make one single stitch in each and every stitch. That's 2, 3 and 4. Once all the stitches are done, remove the stitch marker. Make a slip stitch onto the next stitch. Chain 1 and then trim the excess thread by leaving a little long tail end. And this tail end is going to be used to sew the tail opening together. So if possible, leave a 2 feet long tail end. Now this front opening is going to be used for make it as a finger puppet, and the tail end opening have to be closed. So for this I am using a tapestry needle. Take the tail end into the tapestry needle and attach the tail end as shown in the video. Pass the needle to reach the tail end part, and now sew them both together. Once it is halfway through, add the stuffing to the tail end part. Not too much of stuffing, just good enough to make it look embossed and decent, and then carefully sew the remaining tail end as well. Close it gently and then make one knot at the last stitch to secure the joining. Now insert the tail end into the stuffing and then trim the excess thread. So once it's done, let's add stuffing to the front body part of the bird. Just add good enough stuffing, not too much initially, just to hold the shape, because we have to attach the beak and then add the eyes to the toys. So while you put the stuffing into the toy, make sure you have enough space to put the finger puppet inside. So adjust the stuffing evenly throughout the toy. Once it's done, attach the wings on both the sides. Make sure to place them correctly on both sides at equal distance, and use the tapestry needle to attach them. If you wish, you can attach them using a fabric glue or a hot glue gun. Gently attach the wings on both the sides. I have not added any stuffing into the wings, but if you want, you can add it. I am attaching at the top and bottom part of the wing as well. And again, it's completely individual choice. If you want, you can attach completely. If not, you can attach only the front part. And then attach the beak across the rows 8 and row 9. And then completely put the stuffing part. Once the stuffing is done, add eyes in between row 6 and row 7. I am attaching the Google eyes. If you want, you can embroider the same. And now attach the cloth into the toy for making it as a finger puppet. And that's it. Your cute amigurumi bird finger puppet is now ready for your storytelling session. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.